Welcome back to Money Matters. This is DCrowell from Mortgage Network, and I've been giving you an overview of the mortgage market and what the state of affairs is and what the availability is and where the points of ease are and where the points of friction are. We talked about the availability of the money, available all shapes and sizes across the spectrum. Virtually any property, condominium, townhouse, single-family home, tiny to super large, available in the market now. The second thing we talked about was down payments, ranging from 0 in USDA loans and VA loans, all the way up to 20% down in the purchase of $1 million, $2 million homes. The next characteristic that's important to talk about is the type of the use of the property. That is where the conversation gets a bit more complicated. If you're buying a property as a primary home, the market is flooded with opportunities. There is virtually every type and shape and size of mortgage, as I've been discussing, as a primary home. If you're buying the property as a second home, then your primary residence cannot be in this area. It really cannot be within 100 miles of this area. In other words, you can't have a primary residence in Bluffton and buy a second home on the beach in Hilton Head, even though that sounds like it would be a fun idea. The designation second home is outside of the market area. You've got to have a reasonable geographic distance. The terms on second home loans are virtually the same nowadays as on primary residences, which is very interesting. There's a wide perception in the market that when you move from primary, the discussion of money for primaries to the discussion of money for secondary homes or second homes, that the interest rate would be higher, that the terms would be a whole lot stiffer. Well, they're not. In most cases, second home and primary residence, the terms are equivalent, which is pretty interesting. That's not always been the case in the past, but it's the case now. The only place that it really begins to differ is in the big second homes. Can't necessarily get the 20% down or the 10% down for $1 million homes, $800,000 homes, $1 million homes, $2 million homes. As you creep way up higher, the down payment on second homes creeps up as well to 20%, and on the real big ones, 25% or 30%. At the other end of the spectrum, you can buy a second home with 10% down, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. You can buy a second home with 10% down. You cannot buy a second home with 5% down, 3% down, or 0% down. That cannot be done. So clipped off is the tiny down payment end of the spectrum. Second homes, you must put 10% down, and then as you slide up the size range, you're putting 20% down, and at the tippity top, 25 or 30% down. So that's a shift. Interest rate, pretty much the same. The next really important characteristic is, I skipped one, primary residences, second homes, and the third property designation is investment properties. When you own a property, when you own a primary residence and a second property, third property, fourth property, fifth property that you own for the purposes of renting, those are investment properties. They also can be financed. They can be financed to 80%. They can actually, in the up to up to the $450,000 purchase price, they can be financed at 85%. So there's a great deal of flexibility. Real estate can still be purchased with high leverage for investment purposes. The definition of whether the second property that you buy is a investment property or a second home gets into too much detail for this show. It has to do, again, with geography, and it has to do with qualifying for the money based on income and credit. So it becomes a little ticklish, and it's perfectly straightforward. There's no rocket science to it, but it's too detailed to present right now in the show. The next important thing to talk about is qualification for the money. Two major qualifiers. One is the amount of income that you have, which is then calculated as a ratio versus the debt that you have. The other important personal qualifier is the status of your credit and your credit report and your credit score. That is, what's the best way to say it? That's a big conversation all on its own. In an aging population, which we have certainly in Hilton Head, as people retire, their earned income drops dramatically. So you've been accustomed for 35, 40 years to having a job, maybe two jobs within the household. You're retired to Hilton Head, and your income has gone from two $70,000 jobs, $140,000 a year, $11,000 or $12,000 a month gross income, and suddenly, boop, your income on paper drops to 2 Social Security payments, and as is very common these days, neither of you get a pension. What you do have is a 401k account, which has been converted into an IRA account, and you have various other financial aspects to your life. It's my job, it's the mortgage industry's job, to nevertheless find a way to lend you money, to qualify you for the money. There's a misperception out in the world that the moment you retire, you can't borrow money anymore because you don't have enough income. That's not the case. We have come up with all kinds of ingenious ways of qualifying you to borrow the money anyway. The industry has woken up to the fact that there are a large number of people retiring, and that there will be a huge number of people retiring in the next 10 to 15 years, and that we need the tools in order to be able to lend money to that huge group, and we have the tools. For everybody else, it's a straight calculation of income versus debt on a monthly basis. It's not complicated, and if you're a first-time home buyer sitting in front of us and you're earning money, and your debt exceeds the limit that we need to see in order to lend you money, then we will sit and counsel you and show you exactly what you have to do for the next 3 months or 6 months or 9 months in order to make you qualify. So part of the service that a good lender is going to give you, and hopefully we are that, is to never say no. So it's either yes, go out, buy yourself a house, or it's yes, but here's what you need to do for the next 6 months, and here's the plan. The last of the big personal variables is credit, and it's a whole big complicated subject unto itself, and each and every time the correct thing to do is to sit down with one of our credit reports, which is a mortgage credit report, not an internet Credit Karma report, one of our credit reports, and go line by line through the credit, and we will do the counseling with you to tell you exactly what you need to do in order to spruce up the credit. 7 out of 10 people walk into the office with credit that is completely acceptable. The 3 in 10 that don't are normally easily corrected over a few months. So don't be frightened about it. It's been great today to be able to talk to you about mortgages. It's my favorite subject, and I'm sure Emily will be back with us next week. Until then, have a great week. This is DCrowell signing off for Money Matters.